Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. This is the next video. So I'm starting off with some MGB machining. Quite happy to do this actually, because this is for the company that I work for when I moved down from Derbyshire to Berkshire. So they've brought 3 engines down for us to machine, 3 MGBs. So what I'm doing at the moment is just writing their purchase order number on all the parts so we can keep it all together. And then I've got to do full engine balances, so I'm going to weigh every component for the balance, 3 rebores. I've got to fit cam bearings into 2 of them, and I think I'll then check the rods. There's no rods in here, is there? Not sure. It says check the rods on the paperwork, but there's no rods in here. So, and check the main housings. So I'll check the main housings, I'll ring them and let them know that there's no con rods here. And yeah, so like I say, first job, mark them all to keep everything in order how they sent it. So I'm on the first one of the Oselli MGBs. These are going out to 1950. So with my boring bars, I have to bore these 3 times. So what I do is with the cutter, I just mark them 1, 2 and 3, just so I know which order to put them in. I'm also offset boring the bores to keep, in fact I'll show you on one of these, because this is a standard one, and basically if I try and bore it out to 1950, it makes this part here quite thin. So what I'm doing is I'm offset boring them, I'm moving the 2 outer bores to the outside slightly, and the 2 inner bores in slightly, so it will open this up, or keep this quite thick, reduce this, but it will make it better. So there's a fair bit of boring to do on this. Like I say, I've got to do it 3 times, and this one's the first time. And then what we've also had come in is we seem to have gone mad for V8s at the moment. We've got a big block Ford there, we've got another big block Ford there, a Rover V8, and then a few Chevys, all in for machining and bits and bobs. There's another V8 over the road, there's a Rover V8 there that we're doing, and we've also got a V6 as well. So yeah, we've got a lot going on. So I'm coming to the end of boring out the first block. I've got the second block ready, and over there I've got the 3rd block, which I'm just putting cam bearings in while the borer's running down these blocks. So I'm now doing the cam bearings on the first MGB engine. I've already knocked the centre one out, so I'll use this equipment which has a tapered cone to centralise it, and then it has different expandable collars to remove the old bearings. So all you need to do is just, you can do it finger tight, just tighten that 22mm up there, just nice and finger tight, just so you know it gets all around the bearing pretty good. And then basically just with a big lump hammer, one of these, just drive them out. Like that. And then to remove, so this is cylinder number 1, or the front of the engine, and then to remove the rear one, we just take the equipment out and swap it over. So I'll just slide it out, turn it round, and then drive out this last bearing here. So now the bearings are out, what I want to do is clean behind the bearing surface. So for that I'm just going to use like a carb cleaner or a brake cleaner and some rag, and I want to make sure that these oil feeds, there's the one from the mains, and then the one that goes down to the block, I want to make sure these are really clean too. So the easiest way I found of doing cam bearings is to mark this oil feed hole just on the side of the block. When I'm forcing it through, I put a little mark where the oil feed hole is on the block, and then I put the same mark on the bearing, and then that way when I'm drifting them in, I can keep an eye that the mark on the bearing is always lined up with the mark on the block, because they have a tendency of, when they're going in, sometimes they can just rotate slightly. So with this end bearing, or front I should say, I just look straight through the cam tunnel, and where I can see the hole, I just put a paint pen mark there like that. And then these two I fit this way, so it's the same thing again. I just look through the cam tunnel, through here. Like that. And then the same on the very end one. Sorry, I'm trying to multitask here. I'm trying to hold this and just there like that. And then what I'll do is put the same kind of mark onto the bearing. So with this one first, because it's this one that we're trying to line up, I'll put a mark on the middle of it and then all the way through to the end, like that. And then on the centre bearing, wherever I put it, I was walking around with it, I'll do the end bearing then. Well, we're driving this one in this way, but still, I'm going to put it straight through the middle, like that. And then once I've found where I've put the other bearing, I'll mark that. So from there, I've already cleaned up the cam bores, and that's it now. We've just got to drive them in. The next thing, now these cam bearings are fitted, the next thing I do is I oil the bearing to protect the surface. Then I've got this old MGB cam, but the journals are immaculate on it. This is mine, what I keep with my cam bearing fitting kit. And what I like to do is just make sure before I give the customer the block back with the new cam bearings in, is that it all turns nice, because I'm not actually a great fan of these split bearings what are on the front and the middle bearing. I'll show you one now. That's the split bearing. When these meet together in the block, it always leaves like a lip, which I'm not a fan of that. So normally it means the cam doesn't turn particularly well, so we're going to give it a dummy fit nice and carefully, because we don't really want to mark the bearings. We just slide the cam through. And there we go, straight away, it's not going in the centre. So what I'm trying to do here is I want to mark where it's bruised, where the bearing is bruised. I want to put a mark on it, and then I can see where I've got to basically hand scrape the bearing to make it work. So because this is an old cam, we don't care about it, doesn't matter if it's damaged. I'm going to get an aluminium drift, and then I'm just going to tap here in different places, and what that will do is we'll just mark the high spot, take the cam back out, hand scrape it, and then we'll try again. Right, so what I'm doing now is I'm using these different bearing scrapers that I've got. This is a good, nice, sharp, short one. And then I've got quite a few of these. This is a long reach one to get into the centre. And then, so what's happened is where I put the cam in and I've given it a tap around, it's polished the parts of the bearing where the cam's rubbing on the lead. So what I could do now is just see them parts in there. There's one bit just here if the camera's picking it up, and then I'm going to very carefully with my bearing scraper just scrape round. I've just done this bit here, and then I'll try the cam in it again. But to be honest, if these was a better quality bearing, a lot of the time we don't have this problem. It's just that these are not actually the best cam bearing in the world, and the split bearing, like I said earlier, the split bearing ain't too good. So, but either way we can sort it out. And that's it, that bearing's all scraped now, and I've cleaned it up, and now it turns really nice. So that's that one done. I'm gonna now bore this one, lift one of those two there over to put cam bearings in, stick one of them in the honing tank ready. But yeah, we're starting to get through this now. So this is the first one of the Oselli MGB cranks for a balance. So let's get the camera up here and we'll see what we're like. I've already put the data into the computer, so we're going to give it an initial run and see where we're at. I'm going to run this at a slightly higher speed. We're doing 800 RPMs instead of 500. So it's building up the speed. I'm going to let it run a couple of times just to get a good base reading. So basically what I've got to do now is I need to lose 21 grams at 77 degrees and 11 grams at 20 degrees. So I'm going to do that by just grinding these edges neater, about there and about there, and try and get this in balance. But I'm going to print a working copy to give to the customer just so we can see what we've done. The other crank is in the crank grinder, so I'm going to go and do that in a minute. I was letting the crank grinder, the bearings warm up in the wheel and everything before I start to grind. So the other crank's quite bad, so I'm going to grind that and we'll see where we're at. So this is the first crank. You can see it's not actually it's not in bad condition, it's just the metal's all tarnished, and I've measured it and it's quite a good size, but when you put your fingernail in it you can feel some of the grooves, and yeah, the grooves ain't bad. So luckily this crank is at standard on the mains and standard on the big ends, so I've ground the first big end to 10 thou. So I'm going to continue grinding this, and then I can fill in the paperwork, give it to my customer when they come. They'll know what size it's at. It's got to be balanced as well, so I'll grind it, balance it, then polish it, because the balancer, with it being hard bearings, it sometimes just leaves a little mark on the journal, and we don't like that. But there we go. So I'm on to the next big end now, and then yeah, we'll get that sorted. So that's the MGB, that's all ground now. It's ground but not polished, so I'm going to balance it and then just come back and micro polish the journals. So this is ground to the mains have gone to 10 and the big ends have gone to 10, so that's 10 thou. So we'll make a note of that and let the customer know. You'll probably keep the bearings in stock for this, but we'll write it on a label and put it all in the box and on the invoice as well. So over to the balancer now. So I'm now balancing the crank that I've just ground, and this was running 2 dowels, the same as wherever it is, that one there. But this, one of these flywheels, the one on the crank on the floor, the flywheel has got 2 dowel holes. This one has only got 1 dowel hole, so it's the wrong flywheel. But my customer's asked if I can remove the dowel out at the end of the crank, which I've done, and I'll show you what it did to the balance. So this is the balance sheet with the dowel in, and all we're concentrating on is this left mass here. It's unqualified, so that means it's not balanced, so it's ever so slightly out of the target. So it's saying that the left mass is 6.9 grams out. Now if I take the dowel out, which I've done, and run it again, it's then 92 grams out, exactly opposite. Which is a major problem, because basically on the machine, this is where I've taken the dowel out, and it's saying that it wants all that weight off here, which is just about impossible to get off. So what I'm going to do is, the dowel that I've just taken out, I'm going to machine it down so it sits below the face. So I'm going to put that much weight back in. It's still going to need weight off the front, I would guess, but it's going to be nowhere near 90 grams. So I'm going to machine this bit now, and we'll see what it's like once it's reinstalled. So I've now machined this down. I'm going to fit this back into the crank and run it again, and we'll see how much that changes the balance by. It's a tight fit in there, but I've knocked it in so it's just below the face. The flywheel will hold that in, but that's not going to move anyway. It's pretty tight in there. So we're going to run this up again, and we'll see how much it affects it by. So this is the run with no dowel in. So I'm just going to let this settle so it can take an average reading. And there we are. I'm going to hold the data. So that's taken 50 grams out, so it's made it a lot easier now to try and get some weight out. So the last job that I'm doing on the MGB engines is to check the main line. So to do that, all the blocks need to be prepped. All of these surfaces are cleaned up. The blocks have been, or the main caps have all been torqued up then. And then in the bearing buck, I've needed to get the size of the main line. It comes with a bottom and top tolerance, but in my notebook I've also got the sizes as well. So I'm going to set the bore gauge up for that, and then we'll have a measure up, and I'll show you if it needs adjustment. So the block's on the line honer, and what I've done is I've set this to the bottom tolerance, and I've got about 0.8 of a thou where I can go above, so I can go into the plus side. And basically I've measured it all. Some of them was a little bit all over the place. This one here was quite bad, and the rest of them was bang on the bottom tolerance. This one was half a thou big. I say bad, it actually wasn't bad, but it was the one that was different. So what I've done is I've already just blipped the honer through the main line and then checked all of these, and these are bang on. So I've got one more block to do. I'll record that one being done, and then they can come and collect all their stuff. While I've been doing that, Sam has got a little bit of paint up on that wall there. So I think pretty soon I'm going to do a workshop update, just showing some of the jobs that's been going on here. It's been taking forever, to be honest, but it's just been a budget thing really. We just can't kind of stop work and just do everything. So we've been just nicking a bit of spare time here and there to get stuff done, but it is happening, and I will show you in another video. So this is the last block, what I've just put the line holder through. This one was actually just, it was tight on one of the caps, and the others was just on bottom tolerance. So I'm just taking the cap off to check it. This one's gone half a thou big, so I'm just going to blip that cap down and then retorque it and go again. But apart from that, these are all done. So we've had another couple of blocks, or 3 blocks, come in from Oselli. This is the gaffer's race engine, which he's had a few problems with. It's been steel capped on the 3 centre caps, and then the standard cast caps on the 2 outers, and it keeps locking up, and it failed on the dyno. So we're just checking a previous machine shop's machining, and where they've line bored and honed it, it's actually a little bit tight on all the caps, and the crank needs a polish to get that down, because that's just above top tolerance. However, when Sam has been just prepping the caps just to line hone it again, he spotted a crack which runs across this bridge down here. Now technically I suppose it's supported all the way along here, and it's supported here. This is the oil pump housing, but because this is a race engine, I really think that you need as much holding this number 4 as you can get, and with a crack that goes all the way through, unfortunately I think it's scrap. This is hollow here actually, because the drive for the distributor runs through this part here, but it's cracked along there, and it is also cracked along there. And as a road car, you'd probably never have a problem with it, but with a little race engine, that's going to be revving a bit harder. I mean, it's steel crank, it's got the right rods, etc, etc. I just don't think it's worth taking the risk on that block. So it also come in for a balance. It's a steel crank, it's got some nice bits on it, so I might carry on and balance that. But then there's an 1840cc engine to machine, which is that one there, and this one, which is a 2 litre to machine. Actually, I think it's the other way around. I think that's the 1840 and that's the 2 litre. So I'm going to carry on and bore both these, get the cam bearings in, check the cranks and balance the assemblies. So I'll film a bit more of that. This Oselli video actually was only going to be the first 3 engines, and then these 3 have turned up, so this is probably going to be a one-off, and I'll show you the footage. So this is the 5th Oselli block, this is the 1840. This has got the liner in 1 cylinder, which I've spoken to the gaffer at Oselli, and we said we'd give it a test bore to make sure that there's enough meat in there, and there is. It's all good. So I've got to insert the block here, and then I'm rough honing it at the moment with some rough stone, and then I'm going to finish it off with 2 more grades, and that's to get my valleys and my peaks right. Thinking about ordering actually Total Seal, do a bit of kit for measuring the bore finish, and I'm seriously considering honing that. I've been speaking to a good guy, Mark, at Performance Unlimited in the UK, who's got the equipment and can get me the equipment sent over. It's expensive, it's £6,000, but I kind of want it. It's quite a cool toy. So if Total Seal are watching this and they want to help out and send one a little bit cheaper, then I'd appreciate that. But yeah, anyway, going back to this, I've got to just finish honing it, put the insert in it, and then sort out the main line, torque the main line up and hone that. And then I'm on with the 6 engine, the 1998cc, I think it is. I don't know, I'll work it out when we're boring it. But yeah, we're getting through it now, it's all good. Well, these couple of engines are the gift that keeps on giving, and I'll show you why. It's now obviously bored and honed. I've put it on here to line hone it, or to check the main line. I always put it on here first, because I'll even just blip it through just to try and correct it, as long as it's not oversized. But when I fitted them, I noticed that there's not a lot of thread for the nut and washer. So I thought, I know what's going on here. The main cap's off a late engine, and this is an early engine. And if I grab a cap from I've got a late engine in at the moment, so if I grab a cap off a later engine and put it in at the right height like that, you can see straight away that this part is lower than this part because it has a washer and a nut, where these caps are designed for a bolt, which the biggest problem with that is now there's such a step inside here that this is virtually impossible to put right, because what would happen is I'd need to line bore it and line hone it, but there's a step one way, like that step steps in at the top there, and then this side it steps out, so the whole cap would need moving over. But as soon as you start trying to adjust it on this, it really massively affects the main line for the oil seals and stuff like that, so it really isn't an easy fix, that one. So I've just messaged David to see if he's got the original caps from this, because I don't want to waste loads and loads of time on this, to be honest, because it would cost a fortune trying to correct it all. I can do it, I can make it work, but how much it would cost to do would just be ridiculous, really. So if he's got the original main caps off this block, it's going to be a lot better. So I'm leaving this well alone for now, so I am going to get on with this one, which needs boring out to a 2 litre. So I'm going to grab that. The crank needs a regrind, so I've already taken that over to the old workshop. This flywheel and front pulley is for the block that I'm doing, and the crank is on the balancer at the moment, so I need to speak to David just to make sure that I'm going ahead with that. And then this, I can start to machine this, because that we've got everything to do that. So I've got the Oselli crank in the crank grinder. I've leveled it off. So to level it, we use this DTI and we adjust these screws here, which moves the chuck slightly. I've measured the crank and it's already at 20, so I'm going to grind this to 30. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to grind it, then balance it, then polish it, because once we put it on the balancer, the hard wheels of the balancer just mark the crank. So I'm going to polish it after I've balanced it. So that's it, I'm all ready to start grinding now. So I'm going to switch the headstock on, which turns the crank, and then this head section of my crank grinder, these fingers follow the journal of the crank. Now if I zoom into this, you can see it's actually corroded and got pitting all over it. So we're going to grind that out by taking 10th thou off it. So to take 10th thou off it, we need to wind this thumb wheel in. So I'm going to wind it in until I can just start to hear the crank grinder machine the journal, which is there. So it's taking very little off it, but it's following it around nice and neat. I've dressed my wheel so I know that I'm grinding the crank nice and parallel. So now I've got that going like that, I'm going to put the guard on, switch the suds on, and then I'm going to start to grind this crank. So that's the Oselli crank, all ground to 30 on the big ends and 30 on the mains. And then I've also gave the oil seal face a quick grind, just take a few thou off it to give it a better sealing face. And so now what I'm going to do is I've polished it, but only very lightly. What I'm now going to do is balance it, then bring it back and then polish the marks that the balancer leaves on. So good news, Oselli have sent me the actual right caps now for this block. So I'm going to take these ones out, fit these ones, and we'll have a measure up. So give it to us. So I'm just waiting for Oselli to come down now and collect these bits. And thanks for watching, guys. If you could hit the subscribe button, and Sam's destroyed this video. Oh my God, look what he's doing. Thanks for watching, guys. If you could hit the subscribe button, that would be great, and the alert bell. See you on the next video. Ta-ra.